So, hi everyone, this is Cuckoo. You probably thought I was dead or something. Turns out, when I switched from Clip Studio to Photoshop, Photoshop's much heavier, and I couldn't really record and draw at the same time because it would lag a lot. So, I fixed that recently by changing the encoder and some other tech shenanigans. I'm not gonna bother teaching you guys. And here I brought you Speedpaint, and this is just me drawing something real quick. This picture took me 2 hours entirely, and well, there's not much to say about it. This is just a quick way for you to see my workflow, and I thought it would be cool if I talked you over to it. So right now you could see I am drawing a few sketches, and I think this is really important to start with, because if you don't really do a lot of sketches before you begin your drawing, you are not gonna end with something you like. Truth is, probably your first sketch is gonna suck. There's no way around that. And I think here I got to one I really like. And another thing is, I have a few references on my screen right now. You can't see it because it's on the other monitor, but that's another thing to keep in mind when you are drawing. Always keep references. And remember, the references helped me greatly to figure things out on this one, because I had references for her clothes and for the general face and everything. Not exactly for this character, but there are other characters I could look into and just see things I wanted to do. And this is really good. I don't mean copy things from reference, but always keep something handy, just so you can take a look at how it is done right, so you can perhaps get there. Because that's the thing. And here I am just adding a bit more detail on the face, and while sketching you should probably be careful about this. I think the face is fine for you to detail a bit more when you are doing, because most of the time the face is one of the focal points, and so you might want to give it a lot of thought, and don't just settle for like that bland expression either. It's much more fun to look at a picture and see that it has character, it has feeling to it. And that's something I've been practicing a lot lately, and I think you're gonna see this in my next few drawings. And so here I am just adding a bit of her clothes, which is a jacket. And well, on this stage usually I am focusing on just the mass of things, how they are in space. You can see I'm just trying to picture how is she sitting, what does it look like, instead of trying to put in enough details or things like that's just gonna really slow you down, and then you're gonna have your proportions wrong because you were too focused on the details. So forget all about surface detail and other small things. Just grab the big chunks, see what fits where. And that goes back to the thing I talked earlier on some lessons, which is big to small. Never work small to big. You're gonna regret it. So here I'm just like polishing a little bit, adding a bit more detail to everything so I can safely put it to the next path. And that should be coming up soon. Once I'm done with this, I will reframe it. So that's another thing you should probably keep in mind, which is framing. Where you put your image, that makes a lot of difference. You can see here I'm gonna zoom in quite a bit and just center her, but have her head a little bit more to the side, and I'm gonna add to the tail. This is a red panda, and they have like this big fluffy tails I'm putting in there. So this is a bit of composition, but the way I did it is the picture kind of flows in from her head and then down her body, goes to the tail, and tail just brings your attention back to the body, to the face. And that's just a very simple way you can go about doing the gesture, and I will probably go in about more detail about it. And so once I'm done with the sketch, I usually go in and just fade out everything. You can do that on Clip Studio very easily by just clicking a button. On Photoshop, what I do is I press Ctrl U, which brings up the hue, and on this new thing I just I put it on colorize and just slide down the the brightness, so it's much brighter, and adding a little bit of saturation, put the layer on multiply, and it usually looks kind of like that. And this just reminds me of those colorful color edge pencils, which you usually use in traditional paintings. I use those a lot when I did traditional, and those just help you to get your plan in before you actually do the drawing on graphite. I don't know how to spell things. Not spell, pronunciate. Okay, I suck at English sometimes. Well, so here I'm just adding detail overall, and you can see I'm still focusing on the big parts, but now I'm just trying to get well, not the contour, but like the biggest shapes outlined, so I can see where everything is. And you can see I drew over her hips just to make sure it is in the right place. I'm gonna change a little bit how the tail looks, because it's kind of doing this weird bend that I don't like it. Her hand's gonna be on the tail, the other hand is gonna be covered, and well, from here on you can see the pose is pretty much settled. I'm not gonna change this much, and from now on it's just finding out what do you want in the picture, where it's gonna be, and putting a lot of time. Well, there's not much to do there, and I'm trying a few things for background. I'm gonna have her seated, and so, but hey, let's try a bench, and that didn't look too good because I did the angle wrong, but this one looks alright. So once I do that, sometimes I go over one more time. That depends on the picture and on the project. So this time I just went straight for the next stage, I think. I am not too sure, let me see. So I'm gonna add, oh yeah, I did one more stage on it. So fade out everything again, and so draw over. And this time I'm doing this very carefully, and this just really helps me to get all the shapes right. So you can see now I am focusing on the outline and how her body is in space. So since I have pretty much all the big picture in place, and you can see that I couldn't really use the flip layer, so I had to actually rebind it, and I'm just trying to see if the piece looks good now on the small scale. And now you can zoom in and do things. I like to stay zoomed out for the most part of my pictures, because that way I never forget the big picture. It's a good thing to do. You notice I am not going over every line, I'm just going over the important ones. And when you are lining for coloring, that's actually a good thing to do, because a lot of the information you're going to put into your picture is going to be in the shading, not the lines. If you line everything, it's just going to look bloated and it's not quite right. So I'm just doing part of what will be the occlusion shadows, which are shadows that appear when two things are too close to each other. And there I'm struggling a little bit with hands. I still do up to this date. Hands are always a trouble, but I think I get better at them. So add more details everywhere. And another thing you can see I did there with fur is, don't think of fur as skin. I don't know if this is what some people do, but when you have fur, it's fluffy. It's just coming off the character most of the time. It's never just there. You can see there on the tail. If you treat it like just a flat surface, you're not gonna get the texture correct, and it's a shame, because sometimes you can see some very, very high quality artwork where the character's fur is just like a skin. It's a colored skin, and to me that doesn't feel good. And so I try to always change that, make sure everything looks correct. So here I'm just finishing up the lines and everything, and I will probably get soon to the coloring stage, where I'll just adding the shadows first, and I want to talk a little bit about that. I think, yeah, there we go. So here what I'm doing is just mapping out the shadows. I'm not too worried about how strong the shadow is gonna be, or if it's the right color. You can see I didn't even add colors, I'm just looking at the shadows. And this kind of approach, for me, it works well because it lets you focus on one thing at a time. So right now I'm just looking at the cast shadows and the form shadows. I'm not too worried about anything else. So now I'm gonna add the form shadows, which are the shadows where they appear once the, well, it's complicated. I'll do a video on this later, but basically it's the shadow side of objects. Well, to simplify that, I will do a video on what is shadow, what is light, and how to render things. And sometimes I like to do, especially on complicated bits, this red line first on top of everything, so I know where are the terminators, the areas where light turns into shadow, and then I can just fill in those places with light and get rid of the layer. But that sometimes is a bit of a waste of time, but well, it's good to at least waste a bit of time and get something right than just do it quickly and wrong it, and then you have to go back, and that ends up just wasting more time even. So make sure you always get things right. Before moving from one stage to another, you want to make sure the thing looks good on its own. You can't just stop and go like, yeah, I'll fix this in the next stage. This hand doesn't look quite right, but I'm gonna fix it on the lines. Oh no, this hand doesn't look right, I'm just gonna fix it when I shade. If you keep pushing problems forwards, it may come a time where you're not gonna be able to fix them. And so now I am just doing the occlusion shadows, which are shadows that happen when two things get too close to each other. And you can see I like to just break things down into different chunks. That's just personal preference. I think it's easier. So the way I do this is just I draw a big flat stroke. Sometimes it's gonna overlap with another stroke and make a new layer, do the stroke and then flatten the layer back down. And I like to work like this because it's much simpler to create gradients, and you can have better control over the edge, and this edge is really important. So I do a big stroke, erase away the parts I don't need to make a gradient, and so on. You can see I'm just going over all the bits where two forms collide and get close to each other, and that's just a really simple process, but it takes some time. Good thing we have this fast forwards. And you can see the video is getting faster and faster. I wanted to talk more about the things in the beginning, but once that I got that out of the way, now I'm going to the actual parts of the video where there's more work and not much to be said, so things are speeding up even further. Well, that being said, right now I am adding the local colors, and I'm doing that in value. I'm not actually adding the colors, but I'm separating things in values, and you can see with the black and white how the forms are going to be, how the character is going to look like, and more importantly the contrast, because if you just jump into colors right away, sometimes you can fuck up the contrast, and that's not good. So you want to make sure you get the contrast right. So on her face you can see there's a lot of contrast because there's the white part, there's the black hair, and there is the red bit. And there I'm just adding some of the color now. You can see I'm doing that with a color layer. So I get a color layer, just paint over the thing I want. Sometimes I just paint something in, see if it looks good. If it doesn't, I just paint another color in. And you can see those colors look kind of washed out right now, and that's because that's normal. If I say it's because color layers can't really put in all the details you see, and that's because color has a lot of color variation. If you don't put in the color variation, it's just gonna look bland, and you don't really want that in your picture, to be honest. You usually see, hey, this is blue, so you just draw everything blue, but in truth, it often isn't just blue. It has a lot more colors. And now I'm doing a multiply layer on top of this, and I'm darkening everything and then just erasing out bits to make it look more like the texture I want. And that's just gonna happen in pretty much everywhere. And see, on the hair I did it much, what's it called, the texture on the hair I did it much shinier, so you push the darker areas closer to the lighter areas and have a more sharper transition. That's how you make things shine. For the 4, I did something more random, so I did some strokes, then I raised a little bit. I kept the general sense, but in the light there is more shadow, and in the shadow there is some light, and that's just a way to make things look more randomish. Like it's just the way I do things. And I'm sorry for the zoom in zoom out constantly. I do that all the time. And if you look at that, I actually lowered the opacity of the lines layer because now I have enough information to work without them. So this just helps me just take away the lines from the drawing, and that helps me push the realism up further. So I'm erasing some of the lines, and then I am using overlay layers to just adding more color. So splotches of color here and there. There I just tried to do something like a city. I'm gonna erase that later, I didn't like it. But once I do some splotches of color, I just usually get into what's it called? Direct painting, yes. That's the word I was looking for. The direct painting just means you make a layer on top of everything and you just draw. And for me, once you get the drawing to that stage, it's pretty much done. It just looks kind of ugly because everything is just like out of whack and they're kind of out of order. And so on this direct painting, I'm just grabbing everything I have done under, and I'm just smudging it together, making the edges better, getting rid of some things that are blurry, adding more details. This is a more organic kind of the process, and I like to sort of just get all the technical stuff out of the way, and once everything is in place, everything is in the picture, I go over and start to do what I'm doing here, which is just do brush strokes here and there, and just try to get the shapes to blend better, to get the gradients and everything. And sometimes I do a lot of changes to the black and white proportion things. You see there, I am just adding these brush strokes to make it look more like fur, because before it was just round. And again, as I mentioned, fur is very loose. It really isn't as most people draw it. So if you can, always add some variation, add some flavor to the texture, and things will look much better. But that's my personal style. You can argue that this is just the way some people do it, and I'm making some colors more intense and just pushing colors from one side to the other. There's really not much to say about this. It's just observation. You look at what you have right now and look which places look strange or which places look still unfinished, and then you go back to them and try to fix it. So that's why I zoom out so often. You can see every now and then I'm just constantly zooming out the picture to take another look at it. And this looks kind of weird in in the Speedpaint, and that's probably because I only stay like a few seconds. This entire thing was done in about 2 hours, and this video is right now, I think it's around 8 times the normal speed. So this looks slow to you here. It's much slower in the actual process, and I can't stress that enough. Oftentimes you watch a Speedpaint video and you're like, yeah, this guy is just crazy. Not really. Well, 2 hours is fairly fast time. It's nowhere as fast as you would think. Just keep in mind that everything takes its time, and if you rush things, you're gonna regret it later. So here I'm working a bit more on the background. You can see there I again add things with a soft brush, and then I erase away with my eraser. And this is a good combination I use a lot. You use a soft brush or eraser and a hard brush or eraser, so you have a brush that is soft, a eraser that is hard, or vice versa. And so you do the soft part with one and the hard part with the other, and by mixing those two you can create really nice textures and things, because most things have a part that blends and a part that is just rigid, and if you can get those two right, you're set. And most of this picture was done with a single brush, and it's a free brush. I will see if I can just put a link to in the description. It's from the KNKL show. That guy is great, by the way. You should probably take a look at his videos as well. And there's really no secret. You can see it's called KNKL chalk. But all my presets, if you want, I will link them in the video. This should probably help a few of you who don't really have. And I use 2 presets, not brush presets, so you're gonna have to actually grab them and use them in a different window. You can't just right click and slide through 2 presets. They just really give you more information instead of like just how the brush works. But right now I'm getting to the final stages of the picture where I just add in a few extra textures and everything to it. And really, this is just a bunch of what's it called, just post-processing. I'll talk a bit on that in just now, but yeah, the picture is pretty much done right now. So that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching. If you did like this video, leave a like below, subscribe, and comment if you have any questions or anything you have to say about this video. And I'll also leave a link to my Discord channel if you want to talk to me and stuff like that, and to my For Affinity and different accounts. So that's pretty much all I've got, so thanks. See you next time.